Notre Dame football clinched a berth in the 12-team college football playoff on Saturday with a 49-35 victory of the USC Trojans. It can only be categorized as a little bit of an ugly football game, particularly on the defensive side of the football. But honestly, folks, this game could be exactly what Notre Dame needed. This could be a blessing in disguise of a performance that could pay huge dividends down the road. Ryan Roberts from A to Z Sports breaking down everything that you all saw on Saturday. Notre Dame 49-35 victory over the USC Trojans. First and foremost, folks, it is always a great day when you're able to defeat your rival. And if you talk to any Notre Dame fan, Michigan and USC are the two most hated teams that they play on a year-to-year basis, although Michigan's not a year-to-year basis anymore. But you know, every time that they go out to Southern California, it is always great to defeat the Trojans, whether that is by 1 point or 100 points, having a 2-touchdown victory, which was really a 3-touchdown victory, if we're being honest. They scored their final touchdown, obviously, with only, I think it was 13 seconds left on the clock. So Notre Dame ends up with a decisive fourth quarter victory, a couple pick sixes to end this football game. But this really was an ugly victory in a lot of senses, and I actually think it's good for this team. I think it's a blessing in disguise for this team, and here's why. We saw something on Saturday that we haven't seen a ton of this year and haven't really seen any of in certain instances. First and foremost, this was a game that came down to the wire. It was 35-28 with only a few minutes left in the fourth quarter when Christian Gray, star cornerback for Notre Dame, who had a really tough day during this one, had the interception that really lengthened their lead, and eventually, obviously, Xavier Watts lengthened it even more for the huge victory. But it was a close game in the fourth quarter, and Notre Dame has not played in one of those games in quite a few weeks at this point. They haven't played a game where they had a 7-point margin and had to finish off the game, and the defense had to come off big, and the team had to really stiffen at the right spots. They haven't had that type of football game. They also haven't had a game where the defense played as poorly as they did. They gave up 35 points, obviously, during this football game. They gave up 360 yards passing. They gave up over 500 total yards in this game, 197 on the ground. So it was not a good defensive outing. This was the worst game the Al Golden-led defense has played in the year 2024. They got a couple, obviously, big interceptions during this game that helped to seal the victory in the biggest moments, but it was not a good showing by the defense. And then you add on to that, this was also the first time that we saw the Notre Dame offense have to carry the defense for a while. With the defense struggling, Notre Dame had to do well offensively. They ran for over 200 yards. They scored 35 offensive points. That also includes having 2 turnovers and missing a field goal. So Notre Dame's offense moved the ball consistently both on the ground and in the air for the opportunities they had in front of them. And for a lot of this football game, the offense was the unit that had to carry the other. We always talk about complementary football with head coach Marcus Freeman, and it was complementary in the way that we don't typically see the offense having to carry the load and the defense having to try to complement it at the end. So this was a very unforeseen game. I mean, if I would have told you going into this game that Notre Dame's offense would have played really well for the most part, and the defense didn't come to play, you probably would have called me a liar and you would have called me crazy. I mean, it's not a usual outing for Notre Dame, but I think the fact that it was unusual, because we're going into a playoff atmosphere here soon, where you have to be ready for the unusual and the uncomfortable. And this game made Notre Dame uncomfortable. We saw them in a hostile environment, in a game that came down to the wire, and in the fourth quarter, you had to come up and you had to make some big plays in the biggest moments to win this football game. That's good for this team going into December, going into the college football playoffs. Notre Dame is going to have to play in some of these types of environments, in these types of moments, and when the game is on the line, they have to come out with the big play. So I think that this game will end up being a blessing in disguise. But for now, we're going to celebrate Notre Dame 11-1, punch their ticket to the college football playoffs. Folks, you know the drill. We'll keep you updated here. A to Z Sports, everything you need to everything you need to know Notre Dame. And as always, coming off a big victory against USC, go Irish.